Should have you accept it. All right, today we are joined by Joey Cassata, best known for ZO2.
Yep.
How you doing today, Joey?
Hello, guys. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We're doing well. So, first, I guess we'll start off with what age did you start playing drums?
So I started playing drums 5 years old. It's a long story, but I'll try to make it brief. I'm a big Kiss fan. I didn't know Kiss at the time when I was 5 years old. My family was going to see Kiss at Madison Square Garden, and I was just kind of tagging along. I was the younger brother. I didn't know anything about where we were going. Got there and was completely blown away. Life-changing experience. That moment, I knew I had to be on that stage. I had to start playing drums. Asked for drums that Christmas, and the rest is history.
That's nice. Amazing at 5 to be able to do that. That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So was ZO2 your first band?
No, ZO2 came much later in life. So again, if I started playing drums at 5, I got serious more in the early teens and started forming my own bands and doing battle of the bands at schools and so on and so forth. I grew up in Brooklyn, had a lot of local bands in Brooklyn. We had a lot of area local success doing the club scene in Brooklyn. But right around that time is when grunge started to hit. So for me, I was a Kiss fan, Bon Jovi, Cinderella, all those bands. So when grunge hit, I didn't know what to do. My career was completely halted. At that point, some of the bands I was in locally were shopping for record deals, and we were close, late 80s, and I'm only 15, 16 years old, but I'm playing with guys that are older than me just because I've been playing so long, and we were this close to a record deal, and all of a sudden 91, 92 happened and everything changed. So my career just went on a little hiatus. I tried different acts, different bands. I never got into the grunge scene. I just never loved it. So I went more the other route for a couple of years. I went the Oasis, Gin Blossoms, Hootie and the Blowfish, a more melodic rock type route. And, I had some brief success on some more minor record label stuff like that. And then around 2001, I was burned out of the music business. I was still shopping for deals. My last band had just broken up. And I said, well, I'm going to return back to my first love, which is Kiss. And I answered an ad in a local music magazine for a Kiss tribute band drummer. Answered that ad, and it turned out that the singer for that band wound up being the singer in ZO2 a couple of years later. So that's kind of how him and I met. Paulie Z was his name, and his brother David Z, who was part of Adrenaline Mob. I see your shirt right there.
Well, we had the privilege of getting to know him for an evening with Andrea Kaufman. So
right, of course, yes. So Andrea was very close to David. So I formed ZO2 with them shortly after in 2002, and that's kind of where the name ZO2 came from. Their brothers and their father and uncle, who were brothers, had a band called Z, and of course their last name is Zabladowski, and they had a band called Z back in the 70s. So this was going to be ZO2, like 2002. That's kind of really the origin of ZO2.
Cool. Awesome. Do you still keep in touch with any of your old bandmates at all? Any of them you still jam with or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. So, all throughout my career, all the bands that I've grown up, playing with, we're still all good friends. Some of them lifelong friends, still jam every once in a while in the studio, sometimes even record some new material. Paulie Z and I just recently got ZO2 back together. Unfortunately,
nice.
Yep. Unfortunately, obviously, I'm sure David Z passed away a couple of years ago in a tragic car accident on the road with Adrenaline Mob.
5 days after we saw him. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But since, Paulie has formed the David Z Foundation, which is a music scholarship foundation in David's name. And since then, we've been doing a handful of ZO2 shows again. That's actually why I was asking you when this aired, because we have a ZO2 show coming up. I think it's probably going to just pass when this airs. It's December 3rd
Awesome.
in New York City.
Okay.
We have some guest bass players playing. Our first show back, we had Mark Mendoza from Twisted Sister play the whole entire set with us. Now we have a really great musician, Sean McNabb, who's in a lot of bands as well. He's going to be doing a couple shows with us. So, we're kind of back. We're doing random sporadic shows here and there.
Very cool.
Well, I mean, we've done bonus episodes and stuff like that. We could put this on earlier if you'd like to do that, so we can promote that more. Oh, we would love to do that.
Totally up to you, of course.
Yeah,
again, if it does come out earlier, our show is on December 3rd, Saturday night at the Cutting Room in New York City, 8 p.m. start time. Get there. It's probably going to sell out. So I'd love to see everyone, especially the old ZO2 fans who don't even realize we've kind of reformed and started to do shows again. So please, if you get the word out, that'd be great.
Absolutely. We'll do that. So thank you for doing that. Just letting us know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you're in Z Rock, and then
or ZO2
or ZO2. I'm sorry. And then at what point did you come up with the concept for Z Rock?
So again, another long story. I'll try to keep it short as I can. Z Rock is actually based on our real lives. So when ZO2 formed, Paulie and David at the time were children's musicians. They would play kids' birthday parties, kids' bar mitzvahs, anything they could do. And that would really pay for everything that was ZO2. Once I realized what kind of money they were making and stuff, I kind of joined them as well. And we became a kids' entertaining band. And we were on the road with Kiss. We did 50 dates with Kiss. We were on the road with Poison and Motley Crue and Twisted Sister and all these big bands. And to pay for those tours, when we were off tour, we were a kids entertainer band. And we, not like the Wiggles, not like, anything you've seen before. It was us dressed like rockers, like, picture Aerosmith as a kids band. And it just so happens one of these random parties we were playing in New York City, someone was at this party, came up to us and said, wow, what are you guys doing here? You guys look like a rock and roll band. Why are you playing this 4-year-old birthday party? So we were, we don't know. We were like, hey, no, we're actually a rock and roll band. We're actually playing Times Square tonight. BB King's, you should come and check us out. We're just trying to look for another body in the stands. We're always promoting. We didn't realize who this guy was. It turned out this guy was an agent at William Morris, which is one of the biggest entertainment agencies in the world. And once we found this out, of course, we're pitching our band ZO2 and we want to go on tours and a new record label and all the stuff. It turned out that he was in the television division. He had no music experience, no concert experience. And he was like, I'm sorry, guys, but I'm in the television division. So we were like, okay, well, why don't we do a TV show? We have this Superman Clark Kent thing going on. We're a kids band during the day and we transform into this wacky rock band at night. Let's try to do something. Fast forward, we wrote a little treatment. We pitched a show to networks and we had networks fighting for us. We had never acted before a day in our lives and we got our own television show.
That's awesome. Did you have that Gilbert Gottfried moment? Did that part come from one of your events you did?
Yeah. It's all based. Most of the show is based on real life. Obviously it's exaggerated to the 100th degree, but it's fully based on some real experiences we went through. The way we would come up with the show was almost completely improv. We would have a very loose script, and the script would basically come from us sitting with the producers over lunch, and we would just tell stories of different things that happened to us on the road or at parties, and they would kind of come up, they would exaggerate it, of course, and come up with this loose script. And we would just go on camera and be ourselves. Like I said, we weren't acting. We would always call it reacting, because all we would do was, we had guest stars like Gilbert Gottfried and Joan Rivers and Dave Navarro, Dee Snider, all these amazing musicians and comedians on. And they would kind of have more to do than we would as far as a script. The producers would tell them, hey guys, Gilbert Gottfried, we need you to do this. He would do it, and he would just really wait for our real reaction. We wouldn't know what was coming. And that's kind of how the show formed. And, you know, over episodes, Paulie, Dave, and I got really comfortable in front of the camera. And it was easy for us because, again, we were always just being ourselves. We were always hams in front of other people and stuff like that. So being ourselves in front of a camera probably took maybe 3 hours to get used to.
Okay.
Wow.
And I guess the next route we'll go is we'll talk about a couple things that involved hitting something, one being your head and one being a piñata. So Andrea told us when we had her on about the guitar incident and how one was real technically and one was a prop. And
well, that's actually, I don't know, that's actually not true. They were both
okay.
real,
Okay.
and they were both supposed to be props. So what happened was, again, in one of the episodes, I think it was the second episode of this series, we kind of have a rival with this other kids band, and you know, we're in the episode, we're just battling this kids band. We both show up at the same party, and we're vying for the position of who's going to entertain these kids. And I say this smart remark to the other band, and it was actually my suggestion that they hit me with the guitar. They take their guitar and they hit me over the head with it. Now, I'm a big wrestling fan. Anyone that's a fan of your show, if you're a wrestling fan, there was a guy called the Honky Tonk Man in the 80s.
Dressed like Elvis.
Dressed like Elvis. What he would do is he would smash his guitar over your head, cheat, and that's how he would win. I, being a wrestling fan growing up my whole life, always wanted to take a guitar shot to the head. So I suggested, I said, listen, why don't we get, you know, one of those rigged fake guitars? You know, he used to fill it like with a little bit of baby powder. That way, when you hit it, it smokes and it looks like a big effect. So they're like, oh, what a great idea. So the props department goes out and what I thought got the fake guitars and so on and so forth. I get to set that morning and we're kind of working out the scene, how it's going to work. And we're talking to the guy that's going to hit me with the guitar. I'm like, the props department, head of the props department's name was Tyler. I said, Tyler, how did you get the fake guitar? It looks great. He goes, oh, well, dude, actually, we couldn't get the fake guitar. What we did was we took 2 little acoustic guitars and we kind of broke them a little in the back. That way they would give a little easier. But don't worry, you'll be fine. I'm like, oh, okay. So we did one take. I didn't know what it was going to feel like, of course, because I'd never felt it before. So the first take looked great because I didn't know the pain that was about to hit me. Good guy smashed me with the guitar as hard as he could, almost knocked me out, sliced my nose, and you know, I think I had a concussion. I'm assuming I did.
Sure.
And of course, the director says, "Cut, great, let's do it one more time for safekeeping." Obviously, the second time, I'm like, I'm flinching. You know, I'm prepping for the shot. So the second take didn't work, but they did hit me again with it.
Of course, because they have to.
Yeah, of course. One more time for
exactly. Yeah,
just to be safe. Yeah.
And where did the idea for the pasta piñata come from?
That is one of the funniest things.
So I'm part Italian. My family has an Italian restaurant in Connecticut, so forth, and so it was hilarious to me just to see something.
Yeah, so that was purely scripted. The pasta piñata. So again, one of the episodes, all the guys in the band is kind of on rocky road, and we're looking to go our separate ways. So each of us tries to pursue a different career. And every episode started with what we called a cold open. So anyone in TV, a cold open, what that means is it's kind of the opening of the show before the credits, just to kind of set up some kind of comedy scene and maybe a little bit into what the plot of this episode will be. So in this scene, we're at a kid's birthday party, of course, like almost every episode. And it's an Italian kid's birthday party. And of course, instead of having candy in the piñata, they filled it with pasta. So they hit the piñata, the pasta goes flying everywhere. Little kids are eating pasta off the floor, and one of the kids starts choking on the pasta. I run in to save the day. I give the kid the Heimlich. Pasta shoots out of his mouth. I become like a hero, and I decide I want to become a nurse or a doctor now. That's kind of like the plot of that episode. So that's kind of where the pasta piñata came up. It had to set up that I saved the kid's life.
Yeah.
I love that the prize was whoever collected the most pasta got to cook it and eat pasta.
Right, more pasta, of course. What do you think the prize is?
Exactly.
Yeah. What do they get if they get the most? They get to keep the pasta and eat it. There's no prize. That is the prize.
I was confused by the question. Like, what do you mean? What's the prize? The prize is pasta. That's the prize.
It just definitely one of the funniest things we've ever seen on TV. Sure.
The whole show, the whole series was
yeah.
great. Yeah.
Do you think you were kind of ahead of your time for the show?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, a lot of people weren't even doing stuff like this today.
Yeah.
Like I still get fans on the street seeing me and people coming up to me, whether it's via email, social media, telling us how, oh my God, we just discovered your show. We can't believe that this is not the biggest hit ever. We loved it. It was so ahead of its time. Stuff that we were doing in that show probably wouldn't fly today. There was, obviously,
especially the guitar one where they had their what the spelling was.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Stuff like, it's a shame. I mean, listen, I'm a firm believer comedy is comedy, and it should be taken as comedy. So comedy is supposed to be offensive. That's how I look at it.
Right.
So what we were doing, I thought was great, but in today's world, it might not fly as well. But I do think we were ahead of its time. Just the way we filmed the show too. One of our directors, he was involved in the original Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Okay.
So that's how he wanted to film Z-Rock. He wanted to film it very natural, very, one camera moving around, the room, filming real life situations and not having a script to go by. And it really saved us because I don't know, as, just a band from Brooklyn, if we would have been able to follow a script per se. We had this loose outline and we would do 3, 4, 5, 6 takes of the same scene, and whichever the funniest stuff came out of, that's what they would use.
I just had a flashback of when you bought Frank Stallone's van for some reason. That was hilarious. Yeah.
I saw one of your prep questions I was reading before the interview, and easily my favorite guest star was Frank. Now that you brought him up, so
his music is phenomenal. We've listened to like his jazz stuff. He is great.
Yes. Oh, not only is he an incredible musician, but he is an absolute maniac. So the episode, what I had never met. Oh no, I actually did meet Frank once or twice. So the reason why we got Frank Stallone was there was an ongoing joke inside the band and now on the TV show how I possibly could look like Sylvester Stallone, but maybe not as handsome, maybe more like Frank Stallone. So I had met him over the years a couple of times and we hung out and he was great. And when we contacted him to be part of the show, he was all for it. But, whenever we got a guest star, we didn't know how they were going to be, especially like musicians who are not, Frank is an actor as well, so we knew he'd be good, but we never knew what they were willing to do, if they'd be willing to kind of almost make fun of themselves the way they would be over-exaggerated versions of themselves. The character on Z-Rock for Frank Stallone, he plays himself, of course, but he's living in a van, like you mentioned. He's down on his luck, and he was all about it. Literally the morning that we shot that episode, so the 2 guest stars that episode were Frank Stallone and Minnie Kiss. And I got to the set that morning, and we call times were like 6 a.m. I got there about 6:30 a.m. And on the set already, now it's the first day of filming of the week, so we never met the guest stars yet. And the first thing that I see is Frank Stallone with his guitar. He's got a little mini amp strapped to his waist, walking around singing Take You Back from Rocky. And Minnie Kiss is in full Kiss gear, makeup and everything, just running around the room like crazy. It was like a scene from a circus. I didn't know what I walked into. And I knew it would be a good week of filming right after that.
That's awesome.
So Andrea Kaufman says to offer you a lemon drop, but just one. Do you care to elaborate on that?
So if anyone doesn't know, Andrea was one of the producers of the show. She worked with Stars, who was affiliated with IFC at the time, who were one of the big producers of Z-Rock. So Andrea is great. We had, I forget when it was, one of the Z-Rock parties, after parties, rap parties, I forget what it was. We were all meeting at the production offices for maybe a Christmas party or something. And Andrea had met us out earlier, and she said, I actually can't get to the party because I'm meeting this big wig at this network and I'm going to a Broadway show with him and I have to get there on time. So we're like, of course. Let's meet for one drink beforehand. 35 drinks later, Andrea is already late to the Broadway show. It turns out she gets to the Broadway show, I think, very, very late. We were doing lemon drop shots and lots of other things. And she gets to the show, and I believe, if memory serves me correctly, she had to leave before intermission to go vomit in the street.
Okay.
The first
So
time we met her was at the Adrenaline Mob show, and they were playing, so we were up at the front of the stage and everything. We get back to our table, and she's sitting at our table just randomly. We'd never seen her or met her before, and our drinks were there, and she's like, "I didn't roof your drinks, I promise." And we're
And
like,
she said, "I'm not going to steal your kidneys either. I promise." We're like, "All
Well,
right, you're cool."
I mean, right off the bat, when someone says that to you, you better get up and leave, because you know she did it.
All right.
She's
So
awesome.
so she sent us two. We asked her anything you got on Joey for have him on. So she sent two. That was the first one. The other one was the food eating competitions.
Yes. So ZO2 were big eaters. We love to eat, especially when we were on the road. We love to eat. So, I like to drink and stuff, but Paulie and Dave never drank. I never did a drug in my life. We're all clean. I drank, but they didn't even drink. No one did anything. So on the road, the only vice we had was to eat. So we would go around, and there was this big show called Man vs. Food at the time.
Uh-huh.
And we would go around and try to do some of the competition he was doing on the show, or find new competition. So we would always have eating contests when we were on the road. We did hot dog eating contests, hamburgers, anything you can think of. The more the merrier. I remember one night before, literally an hour before we played, a 2-hour show somewhere. I don't know, maybe we were in Maryland or something. We went to McDonald's, and Paulie, our singer, out of nowhere just says, "I bet you I can eat 7 double quarter pounders with cheese."
Oh boy.
So we're like, well, that's not even possible. There's no way you're going to eat 7 quarter pounders with cheese. And never right before a show.
No.
Anyone who's a singer knows when you try to sing with a full stomach, you're burping, it's coming up, you can't do it. Sure enough, Paulie sat down, devoured 7 quarter pounders with cheese like it was nothing, and sang like an angel that night. We're convinced that the grease from the burgers coated his throat and it helped him through the show. But those are just some of the things we would do. And on the set of Z-Rock, I remember when they were filming the sizzle reel, which is almost like a demo reel for TV. So you record a demo for music and you shop it to record labels. For TV, you record a sizzle reel, which is like a little taste of what the show could be. And when we were recording our first sizzle reel with our production company, they just brought us to a barbecue place to sit down and eat and interview us. And during that interview, we just suggested, trust me, just keep feeding us in the interview, because comedy happens while we eat. And sure enough, by the end of the interview, the crew, I think, was 13 people, and we were 3 people. Our bill, just for the 3 of us, doubled the whole crew's bill.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it's really almost why the show got picked up, just because the way we eat. We're from Brooklyn. We're eating ribs. It's all over our faces, but we're not acknowledging it. We're just kind of like that. You're Italian. You're like that old Italian family, just eating, and it's just going everywhere. But conversation just keeps happening.
Yeah. Just
sure.
a table full of food. You better eat it all. So, yep.
Exactly right.
So on Z-Rock, you always alluded to an issue on the Kiss tour. Was that a real thing? And if so, what was it?
Well, there are a lot of issues. I mean, God, so, we did do the Kiss tour, which was a year or 2 before Z-Rock happened. So we were an unsigned band, and we got the call from Kiss that they needed an opener last minute for the Rock the Nation tour with Kiss and Poison. We did 50 dates with them that summer. And there were just so many different things that would happen on that tour that we used as reference in Z-Rock, just because it was our first tour. It was our first major tour. We were only a band probably for maybe 3, 4, 5 months at that time when we got that tour. So there were so many different incidences. I don't even remember which ones we were referring to, but there was a lot, that's for sure.
All right. And is there a project that's most gratifying to you as far as either the music or the TV show, or is there a moment that you can pick out?
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people have been asking me this recently, and I released my autobiography about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And when I started doing it, I was just writing it for my kids. I have 2 kids, and I wanted to just kind of write down all different things that I did in my life, and just to have it written down. Both of my parents died young, so I never really got to talk to them about their lives and stuff. I just wanted to have something written out for my kids one day, and never thinking of releasing it. And I gave it to a couple friends and people in the industry just to kind of look over before I even edited it. And they loved it so much. They're like, you have to release this. And I was like, well, no one's going to care about this. People are going to like the Z-Rock stuff and the ZO2 stuff because that has all celebrities involved and name dropping and all that other stuff. But no one cares about growing up in Brooklyn and being Italian Catholic and all this other stuff. So I wind up really self-publishing it, releasing it on Amazon. It became the #1 rock biography in the country for a couple weeks.
Awesome.
It sold incredibly well. And the biggest compliment I get on the book is not from, the career stuff. It's the first half of me growing up as a kid and my family struggling financially and being a Kiss fan growing up in Brooklyn and being a sports fan and a wrestling fan and just growing up in the 80s in general. It's a really, you know, tell all story about feeling good and growing up in the 80s, and everyone seems to relate to it. So it's really became one of the things that I cherish most and one of the things that I'm most proud of.
That's awesome.
All right, so we didn't really give you anything wrestling ahead of time, but now that we're on the subject a little bit, do you have a favorite wrestler or era that?
Of course.
Okay.
So obviously, again, same thing. Growing up in the 80s, I grew up as a wrestling fanatic in the 80s, and I loved Hulk Hogan. Of course, he was the guy in the 80s. Jimmy Superfly Snuka was the guy who got me into wrestling. And same thing as Z-Rock. We never put limits on what we can and can't do. So after Z-Rock, I had that acting bug, and we were still ZO2, we were still a band, but I wanted to do more acting. I loved it so much. So I said, I kind of took the Sylvester Stallone route. I couldn't, I was going on auditions and stuff. I I can play Joey from Brooklyn. I don't know if I can play anyone else.
Right.
So I said, what can I do here? How can I write something that'll be based on what I can do? So I literally wrote a new show called Wrestling with Joey Licious. And it's about myself and this was a real character that I had like growing up as a kid. My wrestling persona when I grew up, I wanted to be a wrestler, was going to be Joey Licious. That was my wrestling persona. And the show is based on that. I wind up writing a semi-scripted comedy like Z-Rock, and it's based around me as this 40 something year old wannabe wrestler who never made it, always failed in his career. And it turns out that he's having visions of these past 80s wrestlers come to him and give him advice. And it always turns out to be the worst advice in the world, of course. And throughout, I did a lot of YouTube episodes. Some of them are on Amazon Prime right now. They're little 5, 6, 7 minute short episodes. We had Roddy Piper on, we had Jimmy Snooker on, we had Mick Foley, the Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, and those are all on my YouTube channel, Joey Cassata. And you can even see them on Amazon Prime if you go on, just type in Wrestling with Joey Licious or my name, Joey Cassata. All this stuff will come up on Amazon, my books and the Wrestling with Joey Licious show. But we're still pursuing a full-time deal for this show right now. I have something in the works right now. Hopefully by the new year, I'll be able to announce it.
Okay, awesome.
Cool.
That's very cool. And thank you also for putting all the Z-Rock on your YouTube, because that's how we found it and we're able to watch it and everything. Yeah. So we want to do that before we had Andrea on, and of course when we got you on as well. So
absolutely, yeah. All the Z-Rock episodes are on my YouTube channel again at Joey Cassata. You can also stream them on the Roku channel if you have any kind of Fire Stick or anything like that. If you go to Roku, both seasons are streaming in HD on Roku, Z-Rock. But again, you can see all the episodes on my YouTube channel. Plus, there's tons of bloopers. The bloopers are really my favorite part. I was a big fan of the movie Cannonball Run growing up. I don't know if you guys know that movie.
Yeah.
And Dom DeLuise and Burt Reynolds had so many amazing bloopers at the end of that. We used to love our bloopers more than our show. So if you go on my YouTube channel, there's so many bloopers of us just laughing and blowing lines. And it's if not as funny as the show, if not funny.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, we're big It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia fans, and
yes,
Rowdy Rodder Piper's been on a few episodes of that, and he's always great on there too. So that'd be
you can see all that Wrestling with Joey Licious stuff on my YouTube channel too. There's also a Wrestling with Joey Licious YouTube channel that has just the edits on there. So there's like 5 or 6, 7 episodes. There's some trailers. There's some behind the scenes stuff of me with all these wrestlers. Roddy was if you're a fan of Roddy Piper, go
Mhm.
watch the episode with him. It is hysterical.
Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome.
That's very cool. So what other bands have you been involved with after ZO2?
So again, after ZO2, I was doing this wrestling with Joey Licious stuff a lot. And then, I had my second kid. I had my first, my wife was pregnant actually when I was starting to film Z-Rock season 2. So I had my daughter, right after Z-Rock, and then I had my son a couple years later. So after ZO2, I needed to calm down a little. I needed to slow down the road life and just traveling and stuff like that. I wanted to be home with the family more. So what I started to do was pursue theater and Broadway. And it was always an interest of mine. It wasn't something that I ever thought I was going to do full time, but it was something that I said, you know what? This is a great outlet. I could be home and I could do a show, 8 shows a week and be home and sleep in my own bed and travel to New York City every night. And so I started to pursue that, and I didn't realize how hard it was to break in to Broadway. And it wasn't until a friend of mine who I worked with, I was the sub drummer for Trans-Siberian Orchestra for about 15 years.
Okay.
And one of the members of that contacted me one day that he said he was starting this new show. He was looking for a drummer to be part of the orchestra and called me up, went down to audition, got the part. And sure enough, I had a 5-year run on Broadway with the show called The Great Comet of 1812, starring Josh Groban. And that was so much fun. So I did that right after ZO2. We did that for 5 years. Um, and that kind of led me to here. That's when I wrote my book kind of during that show, during intermissions, during traveling from New Jersey to New York City every night. And it ends kind of with opening night on Broadway, my book. And again, the book is called Start with the Dream, by the way, a drummer's journey from rock and roll to TV to Broadway. You can get it on Amazon. It's still up there. I think it's actually on sale today. We're recording this on Black Friday. So grab yours while you can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. And other than the ZO2 getting back together and all that, is there anything else you're working on right now?
Yeah, again, focusing a lot on this Joey Licious stuff. We're trying to get this picked up. I also play with Eric Martin from Mr. Big. We do some touring, but we do sporadic stuff. He does a lot of acoustic stuff, so he's on the road constantly. He was just in Europe. He just did a whole run with Michael Schenker. Asked me to be part of it, but again, I'm trying not to do a lot of touring right now. I'm doing a lot of teaching. So I'm not on the road all the time anymore, but we do random shows together, 4, 5, 6, 7 shows a year with Eric Martin. So I do that stuff. His band is myself, PJ Farley and Steve Brown from Trickster.
Nice.
So we're kind of the Eric Martin band. So we go out, we do all the Trickster hits, we do all the Mr. Big hits. So I know we have a couple shows coming up in the new year. I don't have the dates in front of me, but check out ericmartin.com. You'll see those dates. I think we're in Denver and Arizona and stuff like that.
Awesome.
When you're in Arizona, let us know.
Oh, is that where you guys are from?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I think somewhere in January. Once I find the dates, I'll let you know.
Okay,
Awesome.
that'd be great.
That's
Oh yeah, we will
so
be there.
cool.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah.
So our last question, since our podcast is called Drumming Up Conversation, Justin is also a drummer. You are also a drummer. Who is your favorite drummer?
Or drummers. You can pick multiples.
So again, me being a Kiss fan my whole life, when I saw Peter Criss from Kiss the first time when I was 5 years old, he went up on that drum riser, 60 feet in the air. It blew my mind. So everything that he's done over the years and his the person who took over the Kiss job from him, Eric Carr, they became my favorite drummers throughout my life. Everything I do is based around what they do. Of course, my musical, taste has broadened over the years. Obviously, when I found out about John Bonham, he became one of my favorites. And Robert Sweet from Stryper was always a big influence on me. But if I had to pick two, I'd always stick with Peter Criss and Eric Carr from Kiss.
That's very cool.
Very cool.
What's your favorite, by the way?
My favorite drummer?
Yep.
Neil Peart.
Of course.
Yeah. I heard the Exit Stage Left one. So I started playing when I was 6, and then again with you, I got into my teens and started really broadening everything. And I heard the drum solo in the middle of YYZ and Exit Stage Left, and I was like,
of course,
you can do that in the middle of a song and then come out perfectly in time to finish. I'm like, and it just blew my mind how someone could do that. Yeah. And that he just became my favorite ever since. But I mean, I'm into John Bonham, Keith Moon. Portnoy, of course. Yeah, I mean,
so Portnoy was a big fan of Z-Rock, and he was actually supposed to be on season 3.
Oh,
And we had a hysterical episode written where we meet Portnoy. Of course, I fanboy over him, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you're one of my favorite drummers. You're incredible," so on and so forth. And I forget, he like goes off, and I sneak and I go try out his kit, and I break his pedal. It turns out that it was his grandfather's pedal that was passed down through something ridiculous. I don't even remember what it was. And he gets so mad at me, and he like blacklists me, and we have a fight, and it was going to be a great episode, but it never wound up happening. But he was all set for it.
Yeah. Oh, he's the greatest. I've met him a few times, and
Yeah.
yeah, he's the greatest. All right. Well, thank you again, Joey Cassata, for joining us.
We
We greatly
love
appreciate
Zio
this.
too.
Yeah. Is there anything else you have for us?
No, that's it. Just you guys can, everyone can find me on social at Joey Cassata. All my tags, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere at Joey Cassata. Same thing with YouTube. Just type in Joey Cassata. You'll see my channel. You'll see all my videos. I have a podcast as well called Top 5 with Joey Cassata. We just do random top 5 lists of all different pop culture subjects. Again, all of this is on my YouTube channel. Check it out. Follow me on social. And if you're in the area, if this comes out on time, Zio 2 will be at the Cutting Room December 3rd, 8 p.m.
And awesome. We're definitely going to see you when you come to Arizona.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, and I'll give you guys a heads up what the actual date is and where it is.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Drumming up conversation.